This is Full Coffers with your host, Phil and Toni Buggs from Abundant Harvest Christian Fellowship Ministries.
And this week on Full Coffers, The Journey, Part 20. Well, welcome back.
Yes,
welcome Good to be back.
It is good to be back.
Before we get started, I want to more than likely date myself with this one, but I think it is apropos. When I was younger, probably 10 or 11 years old, my mother bought me a book by the author of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Now, probably you figured out Laura Ingalls, and for any of you baby boomers out there, you remember the story or the TV series Little House on the Prairie.
I never knew Laura Ingalls was actually a
real person.
Had no idea. So.
Yeah. My mother bought me one. She had several collections of books about her life living on the plains in Minnesota. And one of the books that I read, I forgot the main title of it, but anyway, one of the chapters in that book was called The Wilderness Years, I should say. And in that chapter, if I can remember, which is vaguely, is that there was wintertime in Minnesota. If anyone's from, Midwest, high north, Minnesota winters, such as Michigan and Ohio and Indiana and all of that, they're brutal. And so back in the 1800s or whenever the story was taking place, they lived in this one-room log cabin. Their father had to go out with, waist-high snow to try to find game to bring back for the family to eat. And she just talked about that time just being the wilderness time because there was no other neighbors for miles. There was no corner store. So,
No Circle K?
No Circle K.
No fries?
No Blimpies.
No.
There was nothing. An occasional squirrel, maybe. But, it was tough. It was tough on their family. But, they always seemed to prevail. Why am I saying all this now?
Why? Pray tell.
Thank you for asking. Because for the next several podcasts, and if I were to take it to years, we're talking from 2004 to 2017.
Wow.
We are going through what we call the Buggs Wilderness Years. Yeah.
Yes.
So I wanted to set up the plot. Because there's going to be a lot of roller coasters, ups and downs. And so we are entering a portion of our lives where we are working and dealing with our adult children.
Yes.
Not minors, not teens, not preteens. We're talking over 21.
Yes. Fully seasoned in their own minds, adults. Adult.
So I do call it the wilderness years. And as we were preparing for, this podcast and future podcasts, I'm going to be very transparent, going through those memories that we will share. And we won't share every single detail. It's not important to do that. But the heavy hitters, I felt some kind of way about that. I experienced the pain again. I experienced the disappointment. I experienced the anger all over again. And I was telling, Philip earlier before we were doing this, that I hope that once we get this part of our journey out, I can cap it, and not just cap it, but weld it shut, because it doesn't make sense to go back and relive those emotions, for what purpose?
Other than, the physical emotions and what they bring back, I definitely agree that it's nothing you want to relive. I mean, who wants to relive having their finger slammed with a hammer?
Yeah,
just to remember, remember you don't want to hit your finger with a hammer. So you want to learn that lesson and move on. So I do believe Toni is drawing on the fact that as we go through this chapter in our lives, and it is to benefit parents that are going through this now or really feel that, no one else is going through this or not like us. There's a common thread, and we've turned it, it's the human experience. We tell it from the light of a Christian, of a believer in following the word in everyday life. So, that's the framework, the foundation we build it on. But we practice it in the realm of the human experience. So, as we've shared before, believers, we bleed, we hurt, we laugh, we cry. And so this, again, is in hopes that it would benefit and encourage parents who may feel that, why continue? Because we'll tell you, because in our lives, Christ worked. And again, we're sharing just real life instances of that. And again, won't beat this dead horse, even though it seems like I'm doing it. We just hope that this will be a blessing to someone out there.
Yeah, because I ain't in the pain, man, so this is pretty painful. It's getting ready to come up, but I ain't in the pain. So here we go. So last time we left off, we were talking about how both our children, Kyle and Philip, had moved to Arizona, came back with you, and living in the home that we had recently built. And we had enrolled Kyle in a school, the conservatory. We were given the bombshell, as I mentioned earlier, that her tuition wasn't going to be covered totally.
What?
Yeah.
We thought it was.
Nah. So we had to come up with $1,000 extra every month. That meant Kyle had to get a part-time job.
What?
I had to get a second job.
Kyle had to work?
Yeah.
I'm throwing all of these small things in because our children, who are now adults, have got to recognize that they have to contribute to their to not their education as much to their adult livelihood.
They're investing in their future.
A term we call skin in the game.
Yeah. And honestly, Kyle didn't have a problem with it. You know, she had been working since she was 14 years old, so it was no big deal. Financially, it was a struggle. It really was. But, we talked about it. This is something she definitely wanted to do, and so we saw her enthusiasm, we saw her dedication, and as God always does, he made a way. And so she was, starting classes, toddling on, doing good. On the other hand, however, we also talked about our son and how we found an automotive education school, UTI, was going to basically give him everything he needed to be successful in the automotive industry, and even guaranteed him a job, not after he graduated, but even while he was going to school. I mean, who does that? And then we made the sacrifice of having one car where Philip, my husband, was taking the bus. I took the car so that I could get Philip to school by 6:30 in the morning, come back home, get this job, and we made all those sacrifices only for him to come after a couple of months to tell us, I ain't with this. I'm going back to Nashville. And there was nothing you can do about it. And because basically that's what he told us.
After here, they're 18. Even though we're paying for everything that is causing his existence to be, he still can decide to do what he wants. Now, some of you out there may think that, no, that's not the case. I'm going to make him. You can't make an adult do anything.
Yeah,
you can try.
If you think you can, that's a fallacy. It's not going to happen.
You can try. It might even work for a little while. But the energy you're going to put into trying to keep a person who wants to do what they want to do, it's going to be futile. So it's at some point, hopefully sooner than later, you recognize, let them be. Let them do. It's their life. But in the back of your mind, both Toni and I recognize we still have to supply the safety net. And even with that, and as we talk about these wilderness years, we'll start to recognize sometime God allows us to put the safety net there. Other times he says, let them fall.
Yeah.
Of course, as parents, we say, well, what's going to happen? God said, I got this. So anyway, with that all said.
So I'm going to pause right there. I'm going to put a little fork in there for right now. I want to backtrack a little bit. Now, also in the last podcast, I talked about the fact that I left my job and I had no job. And so didn't know what I was going to do. Once we got the kids established and set up, then I'm kind of thinking, okay, what do I do? I got to do something. and jobs in the paralegal field wasn't coming to me. And so I thought, well, the next best thing is maybe I can go to school, get a teaching certificate or something, and go into education. But in the meantime, I still need to make some money. Now, during this time, we had joined a local church here.
Yep.
And we had become, friends with a lot of the members there.
Yep.
And I would attend the women's Bible study that would take place on Tuesday evening. And I befriended a woman there. And, her and I would talk after the meeting was over. And I told her, I said, actually, I said in the actual Bible study when they said, anyone have any prayer requests? And I said, look, I'm unemployed right now. I'm looking for a job. Because let's face it, folks, we built this house and we didn't have cash money to pay for it in cash. So there was a mortgage that we had to pay.
Yes.
And so, Philip was making, the best that he could with the business, but still we were lacking income from me.
And we had our daughter's portion of the tuition to pay. There are a lot of financial obligations that we had. And with all of this, God is still steering our lives. But you got to start thinking, okay, 1 + 1 ain't adding up at all. So, Lord, how are you going to do this? And he constantly just encouraging us, telling us, promising us. He says, I got this. Just follow my plan.
Exactly.
And it's crazy when he doesn't give you what the plan is. All he does is give you the next step to take. And so in our minds, we just have to obey that step. I'm going spiritual, but I come back to the reality because Toni is in his Bible studies. She's putting out what the scriptures tell us about, if you need, ask God.
Yeah.
And so in this Bible study, that's exactly what she did. And showing you how God works with this is that this woman she befriended, and I asked Toni to pick it up from there, watch God start delivering on his promises.
So I put it out there, ladies, please pray for me because I'm looking for a job. And so after the meeting was over, she came to me and she says, my husband is the CEO of a local behavioral health company. And, I'm going to tell him about you and have him give you a call. And so I said, hey, that's fine. She says, I don't know what he has available, if he has anything at the time, but at least you can just let him know who you are. I said, no problem. I mean, that was a nice warm lead. So the next day, I believe he gave me a call and he asked me to fax over my resume, and I did. Now, I had no clue what behavioral health was all about. I don't know if there's crazy people, what's going on. And so I sent him my resume, and he had one of his supervisors call me. Now, just so happens this program worked with individuals who were laden with drug addiction. It was, we call it behavioral health now. Back in the day, we used to call it, rehab. So they had residential facilities for both men and women. They had a children's facility. So it was a small minority company in Phoenix, but it had been around since 1973 and had gained a pretty good reputation. So when he called me and I gave him my resume and then his supervisor called, I went in and I interviewed for a part-time administrative assistant because the current one had taken leave. And so I said, okay. But I'm still thinking, okay, this will be a good little side gig. I'm going to still pursue education. And so that was my thing. I'd work a few hours a day. I was going to take classes and I'll get my certification so that I can teach, because I also had a secondary job teaching at a local college, and I was teaching paralegal courses, and that's how I was able to help with the tuition with Kyle. But my goal, my destination at that time, I thought, was I was going to teach.
Yes, and on my end with my company still dwindling, I think in prior podcasts I had stated that coming out, it was fairly strong, but because of a bad sales deal or relationship, it started to take a dive and tank. I was losing at this point up to about 75% of my income, which was sizable in our family. And so with all of that said, I was God was allowing drips and drabs of jobs to come in that I would take, and it would be just enough to keep our heads afloat.
But we had some, how can I put it, some lively conversations. Now let's set the stage here.
Yes, please do. But now we're talking about couples and
Yeah.
how we deal with
And
money.
and in particular, and maybe this is not a cultural thing, but I'm going to take it there because black women want their men to what?
Work.
Have a job.
That's it. That's
Now,
it. And black men.
Philip had a job. Don't get me wrong. He had his own business.
Yep.
But as he said, it wasn't bringing in the income that it normally had brought in. So Tony's looking at her husband saying...
Hold on. Like Crooklyn. For those of you who know the movie Crooklyn and Lindo, I forgot the character's name, but anyway, he was the piano. His thing was his music.
He had to be creative.
So
creative wasn't bringing in no green, man.
Creative don't pay for bread, milk,
lights getting cut off. And so in the Bugs family, we wasn't having that.
Well, I knew, and I was still hope beyond hope because I am very much trusting God's going to make a way. God's going to make a way. And sometimes in my learning, in my maturingness as a believer, I'm recognized sometimes like you pray to God, you say, Lord, help me. And God said, knucklehead, I'm showing you exactly what you should do. Why are you still talking to me?
So both of us were kind of in a quandary here because my thing was I'm going to go this part-time job and I'm going to teach at night and I'm going to go to school and I'm going to get my certificate because that's where I believe God would want me to go. Right. Philip was saying, well, Lord, this business, we're going to make it. So strangely enough, I accepted the role as the administrative assistant at the women's facility.
Right.
And I'm sitting here, maybe after a week, and I'm thinking, these people don't have nothing together. What's going on here? And I'm the kind of person that has to have structure, and I have to have things just right. And I'm like, this ain't working for me.
I have watched Toni mature over the years in her job evolution. And there's something that I noticed about her is that I coined Toni as the Marines. Toni has a gifting or talent for creating order where there is no structure. Oftentimes, and I hope that I'm terming this right, the first guys to hit the beach are the guys who set up things. And normally it's the Marines who hit first, set up, and then the Army comes in and establishes. Now, if that isn't exactly correct, go with me that I call Toni the Marines because she will take a situation where there's no structure, no organization, and she will create order. She will create systems. And these are things I think she's honed in the paralegal world. And then as they gave her more responsibilities, she would just do things and would put them in order. So that is what Toni's, if I say her gifting, her creativeness, she creates order out of disorder. And she saw this organization having lots of potential have survived, but boy, could they do a lot better.
And it was getting on my nerves.
So she took that receptionist position, and instead of taking breaks and lunch, what does Toni do? She starts thinking about how can she make this better.
Exactly.
Take it from there, dear.
Basically, that's what I did because it was at the point where I'm like thinking, okay, this is not going to work for me. One thing that I did notice is that they didn't have an HR department. Their supervisors were doing supervision work as well as HR. And I says, this is not making any sense. So I wrote a job description for a human resources manager.
Hold on. Who does that?
Toni does. And I wrote out this job description. Now, mind you, I have no experience in HR, but I know this wasn't working. And I took it to the CEO and I said, look, this is what you need. Now, if you don't want to go for this is up to you. It's your company, but I'm out of here because I can't take this unstructuredness. And so he says, okay, give me a few days to think about it. And, within a couple of days, as God would have it,
yes, sir.
He says, okay, let's give it a try. And so basically I stepped from a part-time administration to the human resources manager in 2 months.
tell me that, no, I won't. No, I won't give much away. Just connect the dots if you so dare
I'm
to see
telling
what
you,
trusting in God will do.
going
Yeah.
from $12 an hour to $20 an hour within 8 weeks. Who does that? But when I look at it, I understand that, the scripture does say our thoughts are not God's thoughts.
Yes, our ways are not His ways. Yeah.
I'm going to go to school, be a teacher, and he's saying, idiot, it's right here.
I got what you need.
I got what you need.
Put that down and just do this.
Exactly. And I did. And so that course changed from what I thought he wanted me to do to what he had me to do in the world of behavioral health. Now, on Philip's end,
I'm still sitting up here. I'm rubbing my rabbit's foot, reading my word, fasting, attending every Bible study that comes on. No, that's not exactly true. But my mind was set on what I thought God wanted me to do. Something that I do recognize about myself in the relationship with God is that He has the prerogative to not so much change His mind, but more so reveal more of the plan that He has for me. And I say that in light of, there are times when God opens the door and I walk through it. And then there's other time I'm still looking for that door that He opened. And God is saying, no, I'm closing that door. I'm opening this door. I want you to walk through it. Let me put some teeth into that. I'm still hoping and trusting that the income we need would come from the Phil Bugs Company. Mm-hmm. But in the same breath, I'm recognizing Phil Bugs Company ain't bringing in no money like it used to. But I do have other skills that I have acquired over the years that were just sitting on the shelf. And so as loving Black couples would have it, my wife comes to me, and this honestly...
You need to get a job. Let's just break it down.
I said, I got a job. She says, no, you don't. You have a business, so that ain't working right now. And honestly, I had to come to grips with the fact that the Phil Bugs Company was not going to bring in the income that we needed. And again, as God would have it, and I do speak in these terms, it's Christmas time. And we have one of those coming to Jesus moment fallouts about, you need a job, I got a job, you go. And God talks to me and He says, Phil, get a job. And so I put my resume out. Now, mind you, it's Christmas. I'm simply saying, ain't nobody looking for nobody around Christmas. They closing up. They got Christmas parties, 2-week shutdown. I put my resume in, and I don't even know what day of the week it was, but it was just before Christmas. And as God would have it, because He is in control, I get a call from an engineering manager at a manufacturing facility who was looking for a process engineer. And my special skills was in an area that they were having difficulty with. And so I give him my resume. He does, I think, a phone interview. I think I went out there. I actually got hired. I want to say January 6th. It was just after the new year that I started my job. That is how God works. When He closes a door, and sometimes if I call him, I do. I'm a knucklehead, obedient child, but sometimes it's like I don't look at the memo, and God is saying, Philip, move here. And I'm saying, but I thought you, He says, what I just tell you? That's the way a relationship with Christ works, because it's not about attending church every day, or if I say paying tithe, and I'm not trying to jump on anybody's, beat up on anybody like that, but relationships is what God loves. And He loves for us to talk with Him, relate with Him like that. But He also wants us to obey Him when He says to do something. And so I did, and God blessed me with a job. We had income that we needed to do.
And again, things were getting pretty tight.
And all this time, from the time Kyle started, and Toni said at the beginning, we had $1,000 to meet every month, but somehow, every time we had to pay that, we had it. Kyle was very cooperative in that she worked 2 part-time jobs after she went to after to school.
Exactly.
She was catching buses. I was catching buses at 4:30 in the morning, and we made it work.
Yes.
So with that being said, by January of whenever it was.
Not quite. I don't want to go there just yet. Because
you always do that. Now I got to reel me back.
Exactly.
Now, how far back are we going?
Just a month. Oh. Because I had been in my new position, and one of the responsibilities or the new responsibilities of this new position in HR was to do the Christmas party. I was in charge of the Christmas party. And so I was getting all this done and getting taken care of and everything. And lo and behold, I get a phone call.
That's right. Yes.
Guess who we get a phone call from?
The wilderness years.
Our son, Philip.
Yeah. We're thinking everything is rolling pretty because we're thinking Phil's doing his own thing.
Yeah, he said he was working. Yep. He was, he was living with a friend for a while, and, he was going to get his own place. But I get a phone call.
Ring.
I get a phone call, and he says, Mom, I'm in a Denny's restaurant. I'm homeless. My friend put me out. I got fired from my job. I don't have anywhere to go. Can I come back to Arizona?
Wow.
Wow.
Boom. Gut punch. Bad things happen to good people. The enemy never likes to see us prosper. He doesn't like to see anybody prosper. But let me cut to the chase with this. God knew that was going to happen. And God allowed us to have the ability to... Now, the first time they came, we flew out, right?
Yeah.
We were able to
get
him...
Now, the second time that Negro coming back, you taking a Greyhound bus. You know what I'm saying? No.
Cross country from Tennessee to Arizona.
That's a long bus ride. Give you some time to think about what you did.
Yeah, and give us some time to prepare for how we're going to deal with it.
Let's face it, I wasn't too happy. It wasn't like, oh, son, come back. No, we didn't do the prodigal son thing. It's like,
Oh, no. We ain't killing no pigs.
Nope, not at all. So we are going to end this episode with leaving you with Philip on Greyhound.
Coming back to Arizona for the second time.
Yeah. So you're going to have to kiss the ring this time.
If not a few other valuable parts.
So, folks, you're going to have to hang on till next time. Thanks for the time.
Yes, that's so good. We hope that you're getting benefit. No, we know you're getting benefit out of this. We'd love to hear from you. Your comments, your suggestions. Give us a thumbs up. Like us on our Facebook page or on just give us a holler back. Email.
Man, talk about doing a promo.
Hello, trying to. But we just want to make sure we love scratching where folk are itching. And again, we love your feedback. So we hope you're blessed with this. Please have a blessed rest of your week, and we will see you the next time. This episode was produced and edited by Miss K. Simone. Cover graphics by Indefinite. Music by Miss K. Simone. So until next time, I'm Phil Bugs.
And I'm Toni Bugs.
Wishing you a wonderful week.